All right, welcome to Talkin' Investing. I am Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk to you about Cleanspark, stock ticker CLSK. They are a Bitcoin mining company. Of course, we cover Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners all the time on this channel. So if you're new to the channel and that's content that you're interested in, please do us a favor and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Also, if everybody could please smash the like button, it helps us out in the algorithm a lot, so I really appreciate it. So Cleanspark just put out their June operational monthly update. So I want to go through that because there was some good information in there, and I want to take a look at their financial statements and talk about their liquidity because Cleanspark does things a little bit differently than all the other Bitcoin miners. So I want to talk about what they're doing, see if it's working, and then we'll look at the charts and maybe talk about some potential price targets. So it's currently Saturday. You can see that Cleanspark closed at $4.58 on Friday. That left it with a $189 million market cap. So I like to just put that in perspective. If I go to this chart of Cleanspark's market cap over the last few years, you'll see that it actually peaked last January 4th, that's January 4th, 2021, at over $1 billion. Now remember, at that point, they were about 0.1 exahash. They had just started mining Bitcoin, and their company was a very different model. They were involved in microgrids at that point, which was in its very, very early stages. This was not a profitable company. They had very little revenue, but they did spike. This spike up to $1 billion really came at a time when two things were happening. Number one, the small cap high growth stocks were in a bubble in January and February of 2021. And number two, Cleanspark had just announced they were getting into the Bitcoin mining business. So I think those two factors really had a giant run up. But even if we fast forward all the way to November of 2021 and we disregard this run up here earlier in the year, this still left them with a market cap of $860 million at their peak. They're now down to $189 million. So you can see their market cap has pulled back drastically. Their stock has pulled back drastically. These guys don't do a lot of dilution, so we'll look at that as well. That's where we sit right now. Let's look at the monthly operational update and see what's going on. Okay, Cleanspark announces June 2022 Bitcoin production. So this was put out July 6th, so that was just a couple of days ago. Production hits all-time high of 12.1 Bitcoin per day. Hash rate increases 12% month over month. So we're going to look at that because you know that on this channel we like to look at month over month. We look for monthly improvements. Now I will tell you the last 2 or 3 months for most of the Bitcoin miners have been pretty difficult due to the almost crashing price of Bitcoin. So we've seen a lot of sideways activity, but as it is, Cleanspark actually has had some decent growth. So we'll take a look at that. June was their best month of all time. So if I go to Bitcoin production and operations update, if we look at these bullet points, June monthly production was 339 Bitcoin. So that is their record. Their previous record, I believe, was 318 Bitcoin in a month. So they beat that substantially. Their calendar year-to-date production is 1,863 Bitcoin. Their total Bitcoin holdings as of June 30th was 561 Bitcoin. So that means that their total Bitcoin converted for operations and growth in June was 328. So that's the vast majority of what they mined. This is what separates Cleanspark from all the other Bitcoin miners. They early on adopted a policy of selling their Bitcoin basically as they got it to fund growth and operations. So as a result of that, most of the other companies either have had some dilution and raised a bunch of equity or raised a bunch of debt or both. So Cleanspark essentially has done almost none of either of that. So their number of shares is very low. They've participated in very little stock dilution. They do have an at-the-market offering that's open. They don't seem to be using it. They have not used it in quite some time. They did say if they have to, they'll use it, but they're trying to use a combination of the Bitcoin that they mine first, and then we're going to look at some debt that they've acquired, and then if they have to, lastly, equity. And it looks like even in the case of a potential extended bear market, I'm not sure they're ever going to have to do any more stock dilution. It looks like their liquidity is in really good shape. So that's something that I want to look at. Okay, currently deploying a fleet of approximately 28,500 latest generation Bitcoin miners with a hash rate exceeding 2.8 exahash. So that is up from 2.5 exahash last month. So that's up significantly. So this is the highest their hash rate has ever been, 339 Bitcoin produced. That's the most Bitcoin they've ever produced in a month. So they're clearly trending in the right direction. Okay, then they say this: the company fully funded growth and operations through the sale of 328 Bitcoin in June of 2022 at an average of approximately 25,644 Bitcoin. Sales of Bitcoin equated to proceeds of approximately $8.4 million. June daily Bitcoin production reached a high of 12.1. So they were about 10.7 Bitcoin per day in May. That's bumped up to 12.1 Bitcoin per day in June. Again, that's their all-time record. In May, they have the same statement. The company fully funded growth and operations through the sale of 210 Bitcoin. And then I'm going to go back to one more. This This is the April production update. So in April, the company fully funded growth and operations through the sale of 285 Bitcoin. So you'll see 100% of their growth and 100% of their operations have been paid for by their operating activities. So that means that this company is essentially cash flow positive. Okay, so I want to talk cash flow for a minute. I want to talk cost and just talk about a potential extended bear market and a crypto winter, because I know a lot of people are very concerned that that's what's going on, that we are in a down part of the cycle, that it could last 6 months, a year and a half. I've heard all kinds of different opinions. I do not believe that any of those are going to happen. I think we are bouncing along a bottom right now. I've gone to their segment reporting, which breaks down their revenue and expense by segment. So this pulls out the Bitcoin portion of their operations. You'll see the digital currency mining profit was $28,476,000. So if I subtract that from the digital currency revenue, you're going to see that they had a cost per Bitcoin of just over $9,000, maybe even $9,500. They have produced 896 Bitcoin in this quarter, and that was by far their all-time record. That was 30+% higher than the previous quarter, and that quarter was their all-time record at that time. The difficulty rate's actually going down a little bit, but even if it were to sustain where it was, and we assume that there's a cost of around $9,500 per Bitcoin, their monthly overhead is somewhere between $1 million and $2 million. Even if Bitcoin does continue to fall or stay at these rates, it looks to me like they could survive without dipping into their cash, maybe even as low as $12,000 or $13,000 Bitcoin price. So they are very well positioned to survive, but there's one more piece of the puzzle I want to look at, because they do have some reserves past that. On April 26, CleanSpark finalized a $35 million in financing from Trinity Capital. So this is $35 million of financing. This is backed by 3,336 of their S19J Pro miners, which means essentially they collateralize those at $10,000 a miner, which is spectacular, right? 3,336 is a very small percent of their fleet. They have 28,000 in their fleet right now. So they're paying 9.9% interest on that. Prior to this, they had no long-term debt on their balance sheet. So my point of this is, if we looked at the last 3 monthly operational updates, which we just did, we see, and I'll quote this, the company fully funded growth and operations through the sale of 328 Bitcoin. So they've been funding growth and operations through the sale of their Bitcoin, which means the $20 million that they drew down and the $15 million more that they have available, that's $35 million they have that is set aside for them to buy new equipment and grow. So this is crucial because the cost of these machines has come down drastically. So the machines are getting more efficient, the cost is going down, so they are going to be able to grow substantially with that $35 million, and they can pay for their operations just based on the Bitcoin that they're mining. So this is a very good situation for CleanSpark, in my opinion. They seem to be set up. They seem to have made some good decisions. You know, they departed from the rest of the Bitcoin mining world very early on in selling their Bitcoin when almost everybody else was hodling their Bitcoin. So people were very conflicted about that. Some people thought it was a good idea. Some people did not like it at all, but hindsight's 2020. In retrospect, they got a lot more money for selling their Bitcoin on a monthly basis. Essentially, they averaged out of Bitcoin at much, much higher prices. And that has allowed them to pay for all of their growth so far this year, all of their operations so far this year, and they have a $35 million loan sitting on the sidelines for future growth. So for me, I like what these guys are doing a lot. I think they're in good shape. Again, this is not financial advice. You guys got to do your own due diligence. This is how I'm reading this. We will see in August, the next financial statements will come out. So we can see more clearly exactly where they sit when the June 30th financial statements come out. And okay, this is the chart on the big picture. I'm just going to spend a minute here to show you. So this was last December and last January. They had run up all the way to $42. If we measure from their high to their low, which was just a few days ago, that's a little over an 18-month period of time. CleanSpark is down 91% in that period of time. And as we looked at when we looked at the market cap schedule, this is not really necessarily due to dilution. This is mostly due to just a decrease in the market cap of this company. But let's pick a more current time frame. So if I go from their highs in November, which was more like 7 months ago, to where they're trading right now, to where they closed on Friday, they're still down 80% in that period of time. So obviously Bitcoin peaked in last November 2021, and Bitcoin is at an 18-month low right now. So there is some line of reasoning as to why this stock is down so much. However, I do think that CleanSpark is finding a bottom. I also think that Bitcoin is finding a bottom as well. So obviously that's the first question you have to ask yourself as you do your due diligence, because that's a massive factor in your decision-making process to invest. So obviously also all of these Bitcoin miners are very, very volatile. This thing, CleanSpark, is down over 90% from its 18 months high. It's down over 80% from about 7 or 8 months ago. So the entire Bitcoin mining sector, as well as the entire cryptocurrency world, is very volatile. So just a heads up, as you guys I'm sure probably already know, please do your own due diligence and know your own risk tolerance before you make any investment in these companies. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit. This is CleanSpark on the 1-day time frame. I'm just going to go through a couple of potential price targets. These are maybe end of the year price targets. It's hard to say. Obviously, this mainly depends on the price of Bitcoin, because as we see, CleanSpark has grown very steadily, and I expect them to continue to grow for the rest of the year. They have stated that they ultimately want to get, over the next 5 years up to about 20 exahash. So, that is not a plan that they expect to execute over the next, 12 months, but they do want steady growth, and they've talked about getting to 6 or 8 exahash, sooner than later. So with that said, I'm just going to give 2 price targets. These are potential end of the year price targets for me. So I'm looking, if they could just get back to where they were on May 31st, which was just a little over a month ago, that'd be about a 37% increase in the price of their stock. If they could get back to where they were on May 4th, which was just a little over 2 months ago, that would be a 70% increase in the price of their stock. And lastly, if they can get back to where they were on March 28th, now that was over 3 months ago, and Bitcoin had run up to 48,000. So Bitcoin had a very nice run up. CleanSpark had a big run up along with it, but that would be a 207% increase in the price of their stocks. And remember, CleanSpark continues to grow. So over time, they will be a bigger and bigger company. So even if Bitcoin doesn't get all the way back to 48,000 and it has some type of nice relief rally or starts to head in the right direction, there's the potential for this to happen in the next 6 to 12 months. Again, this is not financial advice. These are my own personal price targets. And obviously, this is super volatile. If Bitcoin heads in the wrong direction, then I always like to remind everybody, the downside with these stocks is always zero. This is a highly volatile industry, so we don't know where it's going. So know your risk tolerance. So that's all I got for you on CleanSpark. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it this far, please remember to subscribe to the channel and smash the like button. So thank you very much. We'll see you in the next video.